Lofree just released a brand new keyboard, which happens to be the most ludicrously thin mechanical keyboard you've ever set eyes on. I bet I know what you're thinking though. Is it actually any good? Lofree could have played this one so easy, and many people actually thought they would. They could have just released an update to their best-selling and much-loved Lofree Flow keyboard. But no, they actually went and released something totally different, and it's called the Edge. Slow down, oh no, not that one. We need to keep an eye on that. Now, this isn't going to be a full comparison between the Lofree Flow and the Lofree Edge, but I might touch on a few details that I think are relevant if you're looking at buying either one of these. We will, however, definitely look at things like what you get in the box. I'll give you an overview of all the key features, and of course, we'll do a nice, crispy typing test so that you can hear how this bad boy sounds. Plus, I'll give you my verdict on who I think this is for. But before we get into any of that, in the interest of transparency, I was sent this keyboard ahead of launch to have a little play with. That's not going to affect anything I'm about to say here. And if you want to know how I approach this sort of thing, there's a whole page about it on my website. Now let's get into it. Right, unboxing first, and along with a bit of paperwork, you're going to get some unmarked keycaps that we can swap out with what's on the keyboard. Some of them also spell out Edge in Morse code, which is kind of cool if you like your dots and dashes. There are also these black rubber stabilizers, which are for something quite fun that's also inside the box. You get a really nice quality braided USB cable for using the keyboard in wired mode. And then before we get to the board itself, there's this fun little puzzle to put together. Now this is part of Lofree's zero emission concept, where they've actually repurposed any unused carbon fiber used in the making of this product into a little stand that you can use for keyboards, tablets, or whatever you like. And then here's the keyboard itself. In the flesh, it absolutely lives up to the name. It is razor thin. Now, one of the things that I think might polarize people is the design aesthetic of this keyboard. You see, if the Lofree Flow were a car, it'd probably be like an Audi or maybe a BMW. It's sturdy, it's well made, it's reliable, and yes, it's an absolutely beautiful and effortless thing to see, touch and hear. And crucially, no matter what your personal tastes are, most people would look at the Lofree Flow keyboard and think, yes, that looks like a well-made, lovely looking thing. Please, can I touch it? And really, all Lofree needed to do this year was release a better, more advanced version of this product. Turns out the Lofree team aren't really up for an easy life. What they've ended up doing here was engineering an entirely new product that is the keyboard equivalent of a Formula One car. I mean, just look at it. It's 5.4 millimeters thin, which you kind of have to see in person to kind of fully process. It's ludicrously thin. It's got this futuristic Porsche design style font etched on the keys. There's this black carbon body that frames the whole face of the keyboard. And then round the back, it's got what looks like air vents that are carved out of this matte magnesium alloy. Just a quick side note, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that the Lofree logo is visible beyond this grate if you catch the light just right. I mean, this is going to be facing down most of the time, so no one's going to see it, but the fact that they've taken the time to put it there just tells you everything you need to know about the design aesthetic behind this keyboard. And I bet if you put this thing in a wind tunnel, it looks like it'd be the most aerodynamic keyboard ever made, which isn't a sentence I ever thought I'd say. But here's the challenge. All of this type of styling isn't going to be for everyone, which is a real shame because I think if you're discounting this based purely on looks, you might miss out on something quite special with this keyboard. Beyond the F1 car design, there's some really clever stuff going on under the hood. Now, as you would expect, or even assume, this comes with dual mode connectivity. You get Bluetooth or wired options. There's no 2.4G dongle on this one, but if you're in wired mode, you're going to get a really snappy 1000 Hertz polling rate, which is more than fine if you're a gamer or in any way worried about latency. And the Bluetooth connection in my testing has been really solid. If you wander off to make a drink and you come back to the keyboard, you're not going to have to wait an age for everything to reconnect. Battery-wise, the Edge has got a 2000 milliamp hour battery. And where have they put it, I hear you ask? Well, that's part of the reason why this has got a bit of a chin. Now, if this was me, I probably would have gone with an even bigger chin, made it an even bigger battery, and made it all into a kind of built-in wrist rest. But A, I'm not a designer, and B, I also get that this is a nice balance between form and function. Now, I tested out the battery and I found that with the lights turned up to maximum brightness, I was maybe losing a max of about 10% over the course of an average 7-hour working day. So that's maybe 60 to 70 hours on a full charge. Not bad at all, especially considering the form factor. And Lofree say that with all the lights turned off, this should give you up to 200 hours on a full charge, which sounds about right based on my testing. Now, on the subject of lights, this is one thing that you may be disappointed by depending on your preferences. Now, I'm not crazy about having lots of lighting distracting me when I'm typing away, but I know that this is a deal breaker for some. At launch, you basically get 3 ambient lighting modes to choose from, one of which is off. The other 2 are steady, which looks like this, and breathe, which looks like this. These aren't shine through, and even at maximum brightness, these LEDs aren't exactly dazzling. Now, there are some updates coming through which will let you customize this quite a bit. If you just give me 2 ticks, I will get to those. Now, somehow the engineers have managed to seat all of this amongst a PCB gasket mount, plus customized foam in the design. So even in this slimline profile, we should be getting some good sound dampening. We'll find out in just a moment when we run a sound test. And when it comes to the keys themselves, unlike the Lofree Flow, you can remap them using some custom software that Lofree have developed called the Configurator. Unfortunately, I couldn't test this out as the program was only available for Windows machines at launch, but there is a Mac version coming later this year. Looks pretty cool, and according to the website, it will also let you change things up like the style and color of the backlights. Moving on to the keys themselves, you're getting a full set of custom die-shot PBT keycaps. These are super durable, and they're going to give you a nice natural flat profile for your fingers to sit in without showing up any of the grease from last night's pizza. I'd say they are kind of smooth without being slippery, and yeah, they're just a total dream to type on. These keycaps sit on a variation of the Kale POM linear switches that have made the Lofree Flow so delicious, and yet they're even lower than the supposedly low profile switches on the Flow keyboard. They're also considerably thinner, 18% thinner in fact, and they've got a little bit less travel, which you will notice if you've ever typed on the Flow before coming to this one. If you've never used a Lofree Flow keyboard, you'll just find this pretty tasty too. And the trade-off here is that the edges switches are not hot swappable. They're soldered on. We'll see in a bit if that affects the typing sound. Before I show you this, I have spliced together some footage of the Edge. Sorry. Anyway, I've combined it with some recording of the Flow so you have a bit of a comparison. By comparing the Edge alongside Lofree Flow, you can totally tell that these come from the same stock. It's the same super smooth typing experience. There's no nasty rattles or wobble, and a nice satisfying pop on these creamy new POM switches. Now, to my ears, the Edge has got a slightly higher sound profile compared to the Lofree Flow, but honestly, both of these sound a good deal nicer than pretty much all of their competitors straight out of the box. I'll mention no names, but if you know, you know. A final thought on sound though, if you're heading off to the library to finish that report somewhere quiet and studious, I would say the Edge is definitely a bit quieter. In summary then, I reckon you should definitely shortlist the Edge.
Thank you.
Okay, I promise that's the last time we hear from him. As I was saying, I reckon this is well worth a look, especially if you're upgrading to your first mechanical keyboard from something like Apple's Magic Keyboard range, or maybe the Logitech MX keys, and you're looking for a keyboard that retains that ultra slim profile, but is going to give you a massive step up in terms of typing experience. If that sounds like you, honestly, you'll be blown away by this keyboard. Having a super slim, buttery, smooth typing experience that's going to make your ears and fingers smile is a very lovely thing indeed. And what an entry to mechanical keyboards if you're a newbie. Hopefully one day we'll see this available with some other color options, as personally, I'm all about more of a lighter aesthetic on my desk. Part of me wonders if maybe Bruce Wayne had the last word on the design here.
Does it come in black?
Yes, Bruce, it really, really does. And by the way, I think this would look awesome in the Batcave. Now, you don't need to be a billionaire to afford it. Price-wise, it launches today on Kickstarter. Now, if you're super quick, you can snap it up in the early bird pre-order for $129, which is about half of what the full retail price is expected to be. You can check it out in the link below or using the QR code on screen. If you're interested in me making a video which is a much more deep dive comparison between the Flow and Edge boards, just let me know with any questions below and I might think about it. I'm also open to bribery by way of likes and subscribes. Meanwhile, if you want to check out my full review of the Lofree Flow, it's right over here. See you next time, folks.